Christian, thank you for that warm welcome and introduction. I'm Patrick Osterhaus, President and CTO of Protera Technologies, and have the pleasure of sharing you some information with this webinar. We're going to be focusing upon running SAP S4 HANA on SUSE on AWS. And as Christian mentioned, feel free to submit Q&A questions with the Q&A button. If it's pertinent for the slide, we can stop and we can hit them right there as we're going through the presentation, as well as we have a Q&A section at the end where we can hit general topics, anything related to running SUSE S4 HANA on AWS. So looking at the agenda today, we're going to do a quick introduction of Protera, just so you understand our background and how we've earned the right to speak about this topic. And then talk about the HANA and S4 HANA technology running on SUSE on AWS specifically. We're going to go through how you can deploy the SAP solution on AWS running SUSE, as well as talk about some of the more advanced topics with business continuity, looking at the HA capabilities built into SUSE for HANA as well as DR. And then we'll finish off with looking at some case studies. And we also have an opportunity for anyone on the call to submit your company to run a proof of concept with running HANA or S4 HANA on AWS. So that is available, and we will talk about that at the end. So a little bit about Protera and our background. We started business in the mid-90s, and at the beginning we focused upon technical SAP professional services, and we moved into application management services. So we were administering and taking care of customer systems on their behalf. We evolved our services into doing hosting, and over the last 10 years, we focused those services, as you can see, into 5 areas that we have been globally certified by SAP. You can see with hosting services, mobile, cloud services, HANA operations, as well as AMS in whole. And we have a global certification, which is audited by SAP for around-the-clock, 24/7 ability to administer customer systems in a certified manner. So we have that. We've one of the few companies in the world to have those global certs for 5 areas, as well as providing that certification knowledge and skill set to our cloud companies that we've worked and we partnered with. We like to consider ourselves a cloud broker, and you can see on the slide some of the companies that we work with and enable, including AWS, to provide SAP certified services into the cloud. Now, our management platform, we call that AppCare on the cloud, and that provides all of the end-to-end lifecycle maintenance for putting SAP into the cloud. So that is provisioning systems, doing the migrations, and then the operations around support, doing security provisioning and administration of that area for SAP systems, as well as doing all the monitoring, backups, antivirus, and patching. And we're very happy to run these services on top of SUSE for AWS, and we've been a partner network consulting partner for Amazon since 2011, so 5 years now. About the capabilities, we talked a little bit about the platform and enabling cloud providers with SAP certification. How we've come about to that capability is doing implementations for SAP customers for about 20 years now. And you can see a little bit of the life cycle here where we actually get involved in the design aspect, so we can look at SAP sizing, look at some of the transformation that's required for your company to run SAP, doing proof of concepts, which there's an opportunity here at the end of this presentation today. And then we get into the deployment. So looking at migration, if you have an existing SAP system that's going to go to cloud, or if you're going to do a full implementation, we can provide the technical readiness and capabilities for that. And then lastly, also all the regression testing, all the areas that we're going to ensure that the system's going to be sized properly and make sure it runs to certified levels for SAP workload. And then the run and the optimization aspect, that's going to be making sure your system is compliant with all stringent requirements of SA16 or as a PCI, any kind of requirements from the security aspect. We will diligently hit all those requirements, as well as any of the advanced areas like setting up HADR, all the backups and monitoring, all those requirements we will take care of as part of a monthly subscription. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk about the HANA and S4 HANA and AWS here today. So a big announcement came out just about a month ago. May 18th was announced on AWS that the X1 instance, which is sized for 2 terabytes of RAM, for HANA. So this can run the largest workloads for HANA, and it's sized up to 131,000 SAPs, which is a tremendous workload for that central instance to run SAP. Now, it's certified on top of SUSE Linux, and this provides, which we'll see very shortly, all the advanced SUSE functions, including HA and DR and resiliency and performance capabilities, which you see in version 12. So it's a very big announcement. It's enabling pretty much any kind of workload to go now into the cloud from SAP, and enabling this next wave of HANA migrations as well as going to S4. So very big announcement. We're very excited to see that capability come true. And you can see here all the certified workloads. This is from SAP. So all the instance types that you can run for SAP workload. And you can see on the bottom there the X1 32X large, which has 128 virtual CPUs and 2 terabytes of RAM. The supported HANA work scenarios you can see on this slide here, quite a few. So essentially the litany of SAP software now is supported on AWS. We have S4 HANA as well as the Business Suite, BW, and then we have HANA Live and Sarkar, as well as Business One. So all those are supported. So most of the workload that you have in a customer environment can now be moved to AWS Cloud and be fully certified by SAP. And there's a note which is listed here on the slide. You can get more information on what's required in the certification process, what it all means. So the big thing that we want to talk about, the focus here today, is the journey of the customer aligning with SAP's roadmap to bring S4 HANA and HANA into the customer environment. And we can see here we have the SAP Business Suite, which right now is running on a mixture of any kind of OS and any kind of database. Now that we get into the HANA platform, the supported operating system and platform that it runs upon is Linux. So we look at that migration, which is required to get into the HANA space. And then ultimately, once we have the HANA platform, we can look at the either add-on implementation, or it's a full conversion to get from to that environment over to S4. So all the new applications that SAP is building out, including Simple Finance and Simple Logistics, require that HANA platform to run with S4. And so you can see here on the X and Y matrix, you have the platform with Linux and HANA, which enables the business growth for using S4 HANA's applications. So they coincide and marry together how you are going to approach your journey into HANA and S4 HANA. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in this next slide here.
Hey, Patrick, we have a question from the audience here. The question is, do we hear or do we know anything about HANA being also available on other systems than Linux?
As of now, I have not heard of anything. It's not to say that it's not being drummed up and thought of, but I haven't heard of any other plans for other operating systems as of this moment. So I would say not at this moment, no.
Thank you.
Thank you for the Q&A, and please keep them coming. So this slide here, this is something that we've discovered here in the last few months. A lot of interest with Sapphire, and previous to that, SAP HANA 2016 conference around S4 and what it means for a customer to get to S4 and their journey. One of the things that's been a pleasant surprise is companies that have migrated. They took the early advice from SAP to get to HANA, and now they're there. And now they want to enable their company with the S4 applications, namely Simple Logistics and Simple Finance. And what we've been seeing is that companies that have already built out HANA, they'll do an add-on implementation, or this add-on, a partial implementation, let's say, just to focus on that S4 area. So the Simple Logistics could be a smaller implementation, faster wins to get S4 new applications into their environment. Now, the other option would be you would look at a new system, a new implementation to convert over and transform your business into S4. So there's a couple options that you can take your company with your journey of what's the best fit for aligning with SAP's roadmap. There's many ways that we can accomplish it. So again, it's looking at your current environment, what applications are HANA enabled that you can move. Some that new functionality already exists in HANA and is not needed. For example, BPC, it can run in HANA. There's some transformation that is done for the migration. But for each app, it's going to be different. And we encourage you to, if you have questions, you can reach out to us and we can help with the design and the deployment of that. So the key message we want to emphasize here is that when you're going to HANA, you have to look at essentially the environment that it's going to be running in. And this namely is your infrastructure and looking at the platform itself, so the operating system and database. When you're looking at that, this is a perfect opportunity to look at the cloud in whole, and looking at that as a time where you can do a migration. So it's a good time to have that conversation when you're on your journey to get to HANA and S4 HANA, to look at the deployment of HANA and if it makes sense to look at cloud. And this is a perfect conversation to look at Amazon Web Services. So we'll now talk a little bit about the deployment templates and how do we get there to build the systems into the cloud. So along with the major announcement with X1 from AWS at Sapphire, another big announcement from SUSE was around the live patching. And this is an area that we've seen a lot of excitement internally in our team with our managed services customers. What version 12 has enabled is live kernel updates, so we can patch the operating system without interruption. And this is something that we've seen as quite a let's say a limitation with taking maintenance, is how much time it's going to take to patch the system. If there's quarterly updates around security that we have to apply, we have to go back to the customer and get an outage for SAP so we can patch the operating system. And obviously, with our certifications and requirements around patching and having secure environments, we have to do that very often. So this is a very new development and very powerful enabler for us to keep that uptime to a maximum and limit the amount of time we have to reboot the SAP system. So major announcement, I encourage you to take a look more about that. There's some presentations on YouTube that was presented at Sapphire around the live patching. It's a very good feature that we're bringing to the HANA environments. And the other big deployment advantages here on SUSE, which we'll see coming up also a little more on the HA and DR capabilities, is around the clustering and the pre-built images that AWS has. So you'll see in a moment in the next slide, we're going to look at an example customer environment that runs SUSE on AWS for HANA. And the pre-built images, you can literally create a system within minutes to have that HANA system up very, very quickly. So we just, matter of fact, about a month ago, we built our first X1 system right around the time Sapphire released the announcement. And within a few minutes, we had a 2 terabyte system running for HANA on X1 on AWS. Is very, very exciting. Very quick to provision systems and build out that environment very quickly. So an example deployment we'd have here in this example, we see the customer LAN. This would be their on-premise, their headquarters. They could have NPLS where they connect all their sites. And then they're going to have either a direct connect or a VPN connection into the AWS cloud. And this example is showing we would build either one network. We could have a DMZ also if we had some web traffic that comes in from the internet into these systems. But simply showing that we have a landscape that has development for ECC, BI, and S4HANA, as well as quality and production. So we have 3 landscapes here that are showing those environments. And again, with CloudFormation, you can build systems within minutes and fully provision that VPC, which is the network, securely connected to the customer, and have this running. So very, very quickly using those SUSE templates for the AMIs, which is the Amazon machine images, you can quickly build these systems very fast. So it's very nice for proof of concepts or just standing up to do a copy of your production system, which we're going to talk about a very nice feature that SUSE enables for creating very quick, complete copies of your prod system in the cloud.
A quick question from Jim, a retail company. They have lots of mobile users. How would mobile users dial in or connect to the SAP environment on AWS?
Mm-hmm. So it really depends upon what area of SAP and if it's mobile enabled. There's options around Afaria, the Sybase acquisition from SAP. So there's certainly those options with enabling through a mobile application, as well as SAP itself. It's, with Fiori and looking more to mobile front-end access, as long as that the system has to obviously be securely connected to the internet. So we'd have a DMZ and have a web server that provides and services those requests. It's certainly available. We have many different ways that we do that for front-end access from mobile, and SAP is continuing to light up more areas. So I think it's probably best if we look specifically at what area. If it's a reporting area, for it's more sales order processing, what the example is, but SAP has a lot of options on how we can mobile enable specific area in SAP.
Yeah, and Protera is fully SAP mobility certified, so we can certainly also help with that, the design and the implementation of the solution.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll move over to the business continuity area around DR and HA and some of the best practices that SUSE brings to the industry and how we can enable that for HANA. Before we go there, I'll show this slide, and it's very busy. This is a little more complicated, let's say, standard offering that we can build in AWS on top of SUSE. So in this example, we have a customer environment that's going to have multi-regions. You can see they have the East region and the West region separated for DR. So you can see we have a sandbox. This is all for just ECC only. So we have sandbox, dev, quality, and production. And then we'll have a central instance, which is sized for 5,000 SAPs. And that's the central instance only with the database. And then we have 3 app servers here that show out the scale out for the app layer. And the important part here I want to specialize, to signify is we have the storage shared here. The EBS is the elastic block volume storage. That is what you can see is, if you think of drives or file systems that you would attach to server, that's where all the storage is persistent and stored. We want to share that with the instances that were set up as HA. And you can see this as a poor man's HA setup. The EC2 or the AWS term is called EC2 auto recovery. And with a flag that you set, you basically enable HA to be set up in a more rudimentary fashion. We're going to see the more elegant solution here in a moment. But for all instances, you can enable a form of HA with this auto recovery. Now, what happens if an HA event would occur, we would flip over to that other instance. It doesn't automatically keep the application up. So in that instance, we actually are going to fail. The users are going to be disconnected, and then the SAP could be automatically restarted on those instances with some automation. Or if the system's down and your team gets an alert, they can bring it up on that target. So you would have a few minute outage in that case. So just to show that this is the default way that we can set up HA within AWS. Now, to follow this idea and go into DR, what we also can do is set up another region with a system that has a pilot light, and we would do replication into this other instance. So at any time, if a DR event would occur, we would move workload, would automatically be synchronized into DR, and we would bring up that instance at a production size level. Now, it's important to note that we would size and build that DR environment with this auto recovery already turned on. So that DR system fully assumes that production role. And so we're running in that new region, which is on the West region in California, for example, or Oregon, that would be set up here. So just wanted to show a lot of capabilities that are available in AWS. If you want to extend your 9s and go to more high availability, there's very good options within SUSE, and that's what we'll go through here. So built into the HANA solution with SUSE operating system, we have a performance-optimized system replication. And you can see in this slide, this is active-active. So you'd have that other node available at any moment to take over from that primary node, from node 1. What HANA does in its memory is it actually shares, it's replicating the memory real time. So at any moment, if that primary system would go down, the secondary system would automatically take over its role, so you're not losing transactional data. So extending your 9s here within the SUSE standard solution that we can build within AWS. So very, very powerful HA on the application layer within HANA. To extend this idea a little further, one of the areas that we could look at we call the cost optimizing for HA is to do a single tier replication. So what we would do in this instance is you would actually have a system that is sized like production, but we would run another system on it. In this example, we have production, or we have development. So if the system did take over node 2 and it assumed the role of production, we would temporarily lose the dev system in that situation. So this is a way to achieve HA and extend your nines for availability for production, yet you have a cost of development not being available when that happens. And there's a little more cost on the storage, obviously, because you have to share it over those two systems. Sounds like another question?
You got it.
I'm getting it on.
It's it's actually what would be a typical outage, or how could it be reduced, or what's the downtime?
For this model, it would be down to seconds where we could flip over. The important part to note here in this model is the VIP. That's the virtual IP. So that's going to automatically float within SUSE over to that second node. So that's going to your clients would temporarily have a pause because the traffic would no longer be available at that first node until it flips over to node 2. Whereas in the previous slide, we're talking at least minutes of an outage because that system's hard down and then it has to be restarted on the other system in AWS. And even with automation, it's going to take a while for that other system to spin up, load memory, load it from drives, and do any kind of crash recovery. So it's going to take a little bit for for that previous situation, the standard solution for it to come up. So depending upon requirements from the business, if you need to extend those nines and have minimal downtime, this is a very good solution for HA. And then the last slide here, this is a really nice slide. I liked it. It says a lot here on the multi-tier system replication, and it's called cascading systems. So in this scenario, we have on the left side what we just talked about with HA. So we have that production system, and we have that second node that's being synchronized at any time. And you may run this with active-active, where you have a system always available for prod. You may even have that cost optimized, where you have that second node available to run prod or even development at any moment. Now what we're extending here is, let's take that first slide and we have multi-regions. So we have the left side's running on the East Coast, the right side's running on the West Coast, and now we have the synchronization happening to DR. Now, what I'll propose to you, one of the things that has been a real key benefit for our companies that do DR is we can now copy that target system in the cloud and make a copy of production. So that system's always replicated, and through the advantages of cloud with AWS, we can quickly snap copies. So at any time, if your business requires, if you want to do patching of the system, you want to do a new implementation and see what it would look like on the production data, you could quickly snap a copy at any time, or even do training, for example. The use cases vary. There's many reasons why you might want to do it, but it's very painless for us to create copies very fast, and we can spin them up for only the time that's needed. If you want to run it only a few hours each day, you can reduce your on-demand costs for that target system for that copy of production. So it's a very powerful enabler for you to create copies of production very quickly and have HA as well as DR at any time. And we don't ever break that seed, that replication. So it's a very, very nice feature. All right, so we'll get into the case studies here. So this is the most exciting part because we can talk about it actually working and the advantages companies have seen so far. So our first one is an entertainment company, a high-end movie theater chain, which is currently running S4. And as you can see, taking advantage of the deployment capabilities with SUSE on AWS, they were able to deploy end-to-end. So this is beginning implementation to running on S4 in 16 weeks. And that's with our functional partner of Savannis. So very exciting implementation, and they're taking advantage of the simple finance capabilities of S4 on AWS. As well as Ferrara Candy Company, you know that company from the Lemonheads. We all love that candy. They've been running on business objects on HANA for over a year now on AWS. And again, very quick spin up to build the systems. And what's really interesting about their environment is they have their current ECC system, and they have other CRM systems that are built within the on-premise. So they have a hybrid model of integrating those on-premise systems into the cloud. So it's been very, very successful for them. There's a case study actually you can see here on the AWS website, that link, and that was implemented by Dickinson Associates, which is a partner of ours also from the functional aspect. And lastly, for a case study, we have MB Coatings, and this is a longtime customer with Protera. They've been running in our data centers for a long time, and we migrated them to the cloud last year. And within this, they went from ECC to HANA. And what's really fascinating is they went from that ECC version to the HANA platform without doing end user training. So those transactions, sales order processing, their end users didn't see any change within the daily job of how they do their transactions, while they took advantage of all the analytics and performance increase, improvements that HANA provides. Now they're very excited about looking at S4 and enabling that. Now that they're on the HANA platform, they can quickly, add on to their current environment and enable S4. Again, there's a case study on this one. And one of the other separate webinars we have is on our FlexBridge service that we just released at Sapphire. And within this, we can abstract all the complications of migrating on-premise or even in cloud over to AWS running on SUSE. So it enables going to the HANA platform very quickly, very easily, with very little risk. So there's other webinars on that. I encourage you to take a look at those, and you can learn more about that service.
Hey, Patrick, can you come back to the previous slide? We have a question that has actually two parts, and it concerns NB coatings. The first part of the question is, what is the reduction in size, or what is the change in size between the initial database and the HANA database? And the second part of the question is, what was the method used to transfer the data from NB coatings over to AWS?
Okay. So the first portion of the question was around size, and the original production size was at 680 gig. It was just under 700 gig, and on HANA, with compression and the columnar store, the way that the data is stored is much more efficient. It went down to 224 gig. So that was, doing rough math, it's about approximately, less than a third the size. So I think about 30% of the footprint. So it reduced quite a bit. The second part to the question is how the data was transferred. And that's a key part to the FlexBridge, is enabling a company to be able to do these changes, these going to cloud, switching the HANA platform, and enabling an SAP upgrade at the same time. And the way that's done is we're using SAP supported tools and certified tools to do the migration, and we can leverage that with going over the internet with enhancements on networking capabilities between data centers and AWS. So we did this migration all over the internet, and we're able to do that to get it down to a downtime of 3 hours. So we transform the environment from Business Suite on Windows Oracle into HANA on the cloud within a few hours downtime, utilizing the FlexBridge tool set. So it was a quite transformation just for a few hour outage over a weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. So getting to the best part of the presentation is our offer on the proof of concept. What we're doing is we're offering a 60-day compliments of SUSE and Amazon Web Services to provide that proof of concept for either HANA or S4 HANA on AWS X1. So this includes the migration assessment, which we look at the system that you wish to move to HANA and S4, and looking at what it entails. So this would involve timelines for the project plan, any kind of remediation that technically has to be done, if there's patching that has to be done on that source system, give you also estimates on the project plan, how long it would take, give you estimates on the downtime that would be required, and then also what would be involved from a code remediation standpoint to go to HANA. With a different schema with S4, we have to look at the code base and see if there's any changes that have to be redeveloped and look at implementation. So that's all accounted for in the assessment. That's provided free with this proof of concept. We're looking at then, the migration service itself that uses FlexBridge. So moving that workload into the cloud, FlexBridge provides all that. And then also any of the support, any kind of Q&A, any kind of advice we can provide around HANA and S4 for 60 days. So you have 60 days risk-free, free trial to get your compute SAP workload into the cloud. So it's a really good opportunity. Hope to encourage you to follow up with us at these links, or follow up with Christian to follow up to get more information. And love to be able to help you through that journey. I put our contact information there, so feel free to reach out to us. And then on the bottom here, if you go to our website, you'll see our dive-in webinars. We continue to have these. You can see them recorded on YouTube, so you can go back to previous webinars that we've had and dive into the content on those. So, Christian, I'll turn it back to you if you have any more questions, Q&As.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Great presentation. A lot of great content about deploying and running HANA on AWS and SUSE, or I should say on SUSE on AWS. Thank you all for attending today. Yeah, there are a couple of questions. One question we usually get when we present the proof of concept, and Patrick, I'll let you tackle that one. It's if we do not have HANA licenses, how can we handle that? Are you providing the licenses for HANA for the proof of concept?
Yeah, so it's a good question. We get this a lot. If your company's looking at HANA, there might be opportunities with the SAP account executives. If it's an internal use that we would just, for proof of concept, there's also possible that we could use licensing that we have in this use case. So I would encourage you to reach out to us. We'll do our very best to help you to get a proof of concept so you can kick the tires on HANA and S4. We don't want a temporary license to stand in the way for you to be able to reap the benefits and see how it can help your company. So we're going to be your advocate and getting you any way that we can get access, with a temporary license for it.
Absolutely, we'll certainly support you to get the POC to get the POC going. As Patrick mentioned, you have our contact details here. Oh yeah, I forget, there was a question that came up a couple of times throughout the presentation. Yes, we will be sharing this deck. All of you attending the webinar today, you will receive a copy via email shortly, probably later this afternoon, of this deck. So you can click on the different links, to go to the Protera Dive-In webinars webpage, where you will find future webinars we have scheduled on similar topics of running SAP on HANA, on running SAP on the cloud. And you will also find there webinars we have recorded over the past couple of months. You'll probably find some interesting topics there. That's a question I forgot to dong a little earlier. And on this slide, you have our contact details. So certainly feel free to reach out to Patrick directly if you have more specific questions concerning technical aspects of the topics he covered today. It's certainly very exciting to think when you look at your journey to the cloud or to HANA, to look at AWS and SUSE. There are lots and lots of new features you can leverage to optimize the efficiency of your HANA environment, be it a traditional business suite or be it the new S4 HANA. In any case, feel free to reach out if you have questions directly to Patrick or to myself. And this concludes our presentation for today. As said, you will receive a copy of the presentation probably later today. And you have our contact details here. Feel free to reach out. We wish you a great rest of your day, and look forward to further discussing your projects with you if you see an interest, or to having you in attendance in future Protera Dive-In webinars. Thank you.
Thank you all.